Hey beautiful people, it's Chloe. Thanks for joining me tonight. If it's too windy, let me know. I just had a bunch of wind gust up. But I wanted to talk tonight about self-trust and why it's important. And I was really reflecting on this and looking at the changes that I've made in my life over the last year, over the last, hello, thank you for joining me, over the last months and even over the last weeks and even today alone. And self-trust, I found, if we look up the actual definition, it's based on reliability as well as the strength of something between someone or something. And I realized that a lot of my success and achievement and personal fulfillment and joy, has been founded on reestablishing self-trust and strengthening it. And when I think about the terminology of self-trust representing strength, it's the strength and connection to yourself, our soul self, our true self, not our identity or our ego, but who we really are, innately our essence. And there's been some practices that I followed that I've been inspired by through others, as well as a witness to in society, that are growing and expanding self-trust. And this is a time more imperative than any other for us to differentiate between the collective and who we are as an individual. And there's a power in that. And for many of us that have been through addiction or abuse, dysfunctional relationships or a lack mentality or even poverty in our lives, there's been a perpetual cycle and pattern of self-betrayal and abandonment, whether that manifests as a partner that cheats on you, or constantly gambling and being in debt, or having a food addiction to sugar and Coca-Cola. Self-betrayal can show up in many forms of self-hostility. And in the patterns that we, indoctrine from our DNA as well as our family lineage and our ancestors, it's our chance and our time, and really what's required of us is to take our responsibility, our personal responsibility, reestablishing self-trust. And we do that in a variety of ways, but I found that the most important thing to do in reestablishing self-trust is breaking down what it is that you desire, what it is that your goal is, what it is that would be a win for you or bring you fulfillment or a sense of satisfaction in your completion thereof, into small, ascertainable, little, tiny, bite-sized goals. And what's been so important for me understanding this is, going through so much in my own life, personally and anecdotally, I had big goals, right? So let's say I've been at work all week long and I didn't have time to get to laundry or dishes, and maintaining it at the time of that self-sabotage era in my life was impossible. Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Let me move the mic. Okay, thanks, Beverly. I'm hoping that you can hear me and everybody else can. But anyway, I would set this, intangible goal of I'm going to do it all on my day off. And how many of you have set a goal like that, where you want to get everything on your to-do list done in one day because you weren't able to do it incrementally over throughout the week or whatever that was for you? And so I realized that was a constant pattern and cycle of self-sabotage, as well as, reaffirming low self-worth and low self-esteem to be worthy of that time, that commitment that it would take to complete those things in small goals every single day. So understanding that the key to our success is making the rules, right? Making the rules of what fulfillment and success looks like. And also, so critically, that we set something that we can actually achieve, and to be realistic and honest with ourselves. So self-trust is not only about integrity and honesty, it's about follow-through and it's about commitment. So in this case, like I was sharing, instead of setting the goal of doing all the laundry, getting it all hung, getting all the dishes loaded and unloaded in the dishwasher, and cleaning the whole house on a day off, breaking that down into, I'm just going to unload the dishwasher because that's what I can guarantee that I can get done tonight. And tomorrow I'm going to unload that laundry and put in the next load and hang it. Like having one thing at a time that you're able to achieve. And the satisfaction and joy that comes from marking that off your list helps build self-trust back. Because every time you say you're going to do something and you don't, it just ticks one more notch away from your self-esteem, one more notch away from your trusting your own abilities, your own follow-through, your own goal reaching. And it's just a vital factor of having something that you can reach, that you can celebrate, that you can be proud of, that you can accentuate in self-trust. So for me, I find it to be one of the most important things that I've done yet is to set these very small goals and to celebrate that, and then enjoy something that I've been wanting to do as a reward system for myself. Not something that would potentially be an old pattern in itself, but something that allows my creativity to shine. So if that's painting, or if that's just spending an extra 30 minutes outside meditating, that's taking, a bubble bath, just as a relaxation, and to set into that new-founded practice with self-trust. And one of the other steps that it took me to get there was, honestly, this inner rebel in me hated discipline, hated consistency, because I had taken on too much responsibility as a kid. And so, with that said, my adult life, piling on the loads even higher. Who can relate to that? Comment below if you can. Just keep saying me, more, when I didn't have a stable foundation. I wasn't emotionally stable or even able to process my own needs, let alone being sacrificial and a martyr at the time. That I would topple over. I would just fall incapacitated with the amount of things that I would need to do. And like I said, continue down that spiral. So what it was that started for me was first giving me the space to be in that space that I had created a huge amount of self-betrayal and abandonment, and giving myself permission to feel that way. And then it was about little tiny changes over a period of time. And it started with a list. It started with making sure I say, for me, my prayers every morning before I get out of bed. Giving 6 things that I'm grateful for before I leave my bed. 6 different things every morning. These were just the first few things I implemented into building self-trust. And from moving on to that, I could expand my list because I started doing it consistently. It became a habit. And once we do things consistently and perpetually, they become automatic. We wire them in, that aspect of us. And it's now been a solid 2 years that I've done that every single day without fail. So I don't even have to think about it. When I wake up, it's recited, it's natural, it's totally memorized, and beyond memorized, it's in the knowing part of my brain, if that makes sense. And I've added to that. Now I've added meditation and drinking a certain amount of water on my checklist before I take care of anybody else or anything else. And I'm bringing that up because it's so vital that we are the first thing on our list, because we are not able to be of service truly to anyone else until we take care of ourselves. Think about what they say in the airplane, right? They want you to put your oxygen mask on first if there's ever anything that triggers that. And that you're not able to truly save anyone else until you save yourself first. Like, that's in our environment. It's everywhere around us telling that self-care is vital and important. So when we start our day in gratitude, and we start our day with a small checklist that we can guarantee win and set the rules to win, can you imagine what that does for your self-esteem? Can you imagine how much that heals any self-betrayal and self-abandonment from before, from not following through on things, or disappointing other people, and the guilt and shame that comes with that from not making it to events, or telling somebody you're going to send them something and forgetting, and that reoccurring cycle of just being embarrassed and hiding? Start making a list before you go to bed. Just the basics to begin with. Just start with the list. Let that be your first commitment. It can be one thing. It can say intentions. It can say prayer. It can say, 24 ounces of water, whatever that is. But it's so important that you start with that, and then build onto that. So you master that for a week. Celebrate that success. Then add to it and add to it. And eventually, doing that perpetually, you'll realize how efficient you are with your time. You'll realize that you're prioritizing you. You'll build boundaries and say no, because you've done this so many times consistently. You're like, oh, I've got to get all this down on my list before I check my text messages or respond to anybody. You start to build the habit, and the habit builds the long-term adoption, and it becomes sovereign and synonymous in you. It becomes one with you. It's no longer something you have to think about. It becomes automatic. Just like driving. When we think about when we first started driving, it was so scary in the beginning, right? We're like, oh my God, did I turn my blinker on? How's my mirror, right? Check behind me 5 times. And now if you're driving, think about how automated that is. And you can be doing 5 things at the same time while driving because it's in the knowing part of your brain. So self-trust, getting to that knowing part of the brain, takes baby steps, and being okay with it taking baby steps. And celebrating the wins as you go. Because if you're not going to celebrate them, there's nobody else that's going to celebrate them for you that's going to be meaningful for you in the same way. So I hope there's golden nuggets in this for you tonight about self-trust, and that you're able to implement some of these things in for you, because it represents your integrity to yourself, your responsibility for yourself, and it takes you out of being a victim, and it moves you into accountability, which allows you to truly align with faith, allows you to become your most optimum self when you can trust that you're going to do what you said that you were going to do. And for me, that has been the ultimate game changer that has changed not only my relationships dynamics with everybody, but especially with myself. It has been one of the most critical things for me to embody unconditional love. And for those of you that are watching, I imagine you want to make the world a better place. You want what's best for one and all. Well, it starts with what's best for you. And it takes that time investment. It takes that consistency. It takes that willingness to heal your inner rebel, that version of you that took on too much, that didn't have boundaries and didn't say no. So learn to say no and put yes for you at the top of the list. So I hope that resonates. Lots of love to you all. Please comment below and let me know what you're doing to establish and greater strengthen your self-trust. Take care, guys. Have a good night.